Hi everyone, welcome to OCAV4 Breeding British Birds episode 6. So of course it does mean that we are now 6 weeks into the breeding season. What a season it has been so far. So today we're going to check up on the fledglings that we saw jump the nest for the first time last week. We've got some new additions to introduce you to, and of course we need to check on those birds that actually haven't made much of a move yet and what we're going to do to try and encourage them to. So let's take a look. So today we're going to start with the Redpolls. Now over this 6-week period, the Redpolls have been quite irrelevant over about 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks, but now they've started to grow into it and we've started to get a little bit of success with them. So 2 weeks ago, the hen in the top cage over here went to nest. She had 5 eggs and 3 of those eggs have hatched and we've got 3 chicks being reared. Now of the 5, we had 2 that didn't hatch. One was dead in shell, not quite sure why. The other was a clear egg. Now it is a young pair that I've brought in actually from abroad by a good friend and they're absolutely fantastic birds. So 3 chicks that are about 4 or 5 days old now. I'll be looking to ring them very soon, but they're looking excellent. Now what I've been giving the pair to rear their young is 3 different things. An egg food mix. Now I'll put the recipe to this at the top of this video somewhere. I am going to be doing an updated video on that very shortly. However, I've given them petit pois, so some boiled peas, which they absolutely love, deshelling and then moshing up and feeding to their chicks. And finally, a little bit of higher increased protein is some insects. Now, what I've been doing is giving them some frozen insects that I can just take out of the freezer as I need them. So they've got some buffaloes there, they're like mini mealworms, and they've got some pinky maggots as well, all free of botulism, any raw meat in there that can go off. So I'm fairly confident that these will be absolutely fine for them to rear on. So great news with that pair. And the nest site behind me, we have possibly my best hen. She's on 5 eggs and they're actually due today. However, I haven't seen any chicks today. So sadly, I can't show you them, of course, in today's episode. But next week, I should be able to show them you. So keep your fingers crossed all goes well. For the other 6 pairs, they've been getting on all right. They are messing, but there's quite a few young hens there as well. Some of them have just been building up and then ragging the nest. Some of them have not been building up but laying eggs in there. And one of them has just been laying eggs on the floor in the same place, even though she hasn't built a nest. But don't worry, it's only mid-May. There's plenty of time for them to come round. This past week has probably been the most difficult I've ever even known the canaries. So we've had about 24 to 28 youngsters jump the nest, all within days of each other, which means that the workload has had to be really quite increased, and I've had to be checking the chicks every couple of hours to make sure they're not trapped in feed hoppers, or they've not caught the leg on something, or they've not sat sulking in a corner. So it is quite difficult when they're all doing this at the same time, and it's equally stressful for the parents. Now, a problem that I've encountered that it's just a little problem, it's a quick fix, and overall it won't really affect anything, is that the nest sites have suddenly become available to all the hens, and because the hens are in quite a good condition, they want to go back to nest, which has meant that the hens have stopped feeding the youngsters and have been putting their efforts into rebuilding or laying eggs or messing about like that. And sometimes the cockbirds can get dragged in on that as well, which means no one's feeding the chicks. And that's something I've noticed over the past few days with a couple of the canaries, as some of the chicks haven't been fed as much as they should have been doing. So what I've done is I've took the nest sites away and I've hung them on the front so the hens can see the nest sites, they can go back to nest soon. But they need to finish rearing their chicks first and get them to a point where I can start to wean them before I actually let them go down again. Now, a particular bird that has been a problem, or a particular pair, was a pair of frills. So we've got a white cockbird with a clear buff hen, and they've got 3 youngsters, 2 ticked whites and a clear cinnamon. I came into the shed 2 mornings ago to find the 2 white chicks basically red between their wings and their legs. They were a real mess and they were covered in blood, and it turns out what had happened was the cockbird had been plucking them and plucking the tail feathers of the chicks to put in the nest and reline the nest. He's driving the hen to go back, and the chicks have not even finished developing at this point. So there's veins in the tail feathers and they were covered in blood. So I've ended up having to clean the chicks, Thankfully, just a bit of water, good clean down, and they look absolutely fine, just tailless. And the cockbird, I've had to move him out into a separate cage away from the chicks so he won't continue to bully them. And that, so far, fingers crossed it continues, has fixed the problem. So it has been a pain, but I think we're getting there now. Something I have done just to try and discourage the hens from plucking their youngsters, and it's not just been that pair, I've noticed it with the crested canaries, I've noticed it with one of the mulin hens as well, is offering them that little bit of nest material that they can faff about with, mess about and put their interests on and pulling it about rather than the chicks. So I've been giving them some jute with cotton and some kapok fibre. Just getting that, putting it into the cage front like that, and that's provided hours of entertainment for the hens, and even the chicks show a little bit of interest from time to time. Now, I don't want them to go straight back down now. I want them to finish rearing their chicks. I'm happy to give them the nest sites back in a week's time. I just need the chicks to be fully developed enough that I can start to wean them and know that they're starting to pick up a little bit of food for themselves. But so far it has done a fairly good job for me with most pairs. Obviously I've had to remove the cockbird from some of them that have been causing quite a nuisance. So now that it's mid-May, it's 6 weeks since we paired the birds up, and you have to start asking questions of why some of the birds aren't actually going to nest and breed. And sometimes it's all right at this point. The bramblings, for example, I've spoke to various breeders and they said anything before June is a bonus. So I'm fine with them not doing anything at the moment. But birds like the linnets that have generally gone down at the start of April have still yet to even show much interest. They've been picking up material but not actually building or not laying. So I've offered some alternative nest sites for them. The pair down here have got a wire pan, a little cotton liner in it with some fake Christmas tree around it, and they seem absolutely fine with that, and hopefully this alternative option will encourage them to build up and go to nest. For the bullfinches, we've seen them build, we've seen them lay, but they haven't sat, so I've offered them another nest site as well. But for the goldfinches, they've not shown any interest at all, and I've even seen the hen starting to wag a tail a little bit like a cockbird does. So I have vent sexed them, and it does look like it is a pair, but that could all change. So I'm going to give them till the start of June, and maybe we'll put them in a flight and try and get them fit that way again and see if it makes a difference. And if it doesn't, we'll try something else, maybe make a new mule or hybrid pair up out of some spare birds. But either way, now is the time to start making a few changes if after 6 weeks you've seen no encouraging signs that they're going to go to nest. Thankfully this week I've got some more positive news to report from the Greenfinch. We've seen over the past few weeks they've been so inconsistent. By now we'd have chicks jump in the nest, and we've not really even got that. But this week it does seem to have settled down a bit and improved. I've moved them off a bit of a Greenfinch mix that I've made up onto a basic British finch mix because we've had problems with fertility. I think some of the cockbirds perhaps carrying a little bit too much weight, so we need to strip that fat off them, and they should hopefully be filling eggs within a week or so now. So they're all on a basic British finch mix, and I'm hoping that will do the job. I've also been giving them some germinated seed and some fertility vitamins to help that. But something good is that the pair in flight 4 and interestingly have built up. Well, they've not built up in the nest site, they've built on the nest site. So the cover that surrounds the nest, which is a fake Christmas tree, has now got a nest intertwined in it. The hen, I haven't checked the nest, so I think there's some eggs in it because the hen's been sat, but I don't know. But it looks fairly stable. I'm happy for them to nest there. So that's an interesting one in flight 4. Flight 5 is very exciting. The hen that nested at the front had 4 full eggs. 3 of them has hatched. I think there might be 1 more to hatch by the look of it. But we've got 3 chicks that are now about a day old. The hen's been doing a great job feeding them. So I'm really pleased that we've finally got some young life out here. And for the pairs inside, some more good news. So the pair in the cage hatched 2 eggs. 1 of them ended up dying in the nest. I'm not sure why. I think it was trampled. And that left us with 1 chick. Now, they reared it for about 3 or 4 days and then lost interest because there was only 1 chick. So I have put that under a pair of canaries, which I'm hoping will do a good job feeding it. And so far, after 24 hours, they have been doing. And for the pair that are in the aluminium flights, they've built up. They're on a few eggs now, and they've built an absolute monstrosity of a nest. So fingers crossed it all goes well, and we'll see how they're getting on next episode. Dare I say, nothing but positives have been this week. from the mule and hybrid pairs. So the Siskin mule pair, they jumped last episode. They've now completely jumped. They're happy jumping about perch to perch. And I've even seen one of the youngsters picking up a bit of food off the floor, which is a brilliant sign. Now, the hen did look to go back to nest. However, two things. One, I can't let the cockbird back in, the Siskin cock, because he might kill the youngsters. And two, I can't let her go back to nest on her own because she'll stop feeding the youngsters, which is obviously a giant problem. So I'm going to have to leave them for this moment in time. But some other good news is that the pair in the far corner, so the cinnamon hen with the brown pastel cockbird, she has got 4 eggs under her, all are full. 2 literally hatched an hour ago, and we've got 2 more due in the next few hours, I would have hoped. So by tomorrow morning, I'm hopeful we'll have 4 Siskin mule chicks, all going well. Now, the chicks in this nest, theoretically, should all be cinnamon. So it's a brown pastel cockbird to a cinnamon hen. They should be brown pastel hens and brown cockbirds. So we'll see what happens, but it would be lovely if by the end of the breeding season we've got a number of Siskin mules on the sticks that we can have a good look through, let them molt out and have a good selection through who will make the show team and who will be available for some other people to have in their bird rooms as well. Last round, the linnet mule pair had all full eggs, but sadly they were all dead in shell for some reason. I'm not quite sure. I think the hen might have got spooked off the nest in the night or something like that. But they are now back down on 4 eggs, just been set today. So it'll be 2 weeks' time that we'll hopefully see some young Siskin mules here. But that's a great sign. And the Twite Norwich pair. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. We've had 2 or 3 rounds of eggs from the Twite cock to the Norwich hen now, and they've all been clear, which is quite unusual because the Twite cockbird has been in excellent condition. He's been bouncing and he's been singing, and I've seen him feeding the hen and I've seen him mating the hen. The Norwich hen, however, might be the problem, and I think I've found out why. So it's quite a common problem with Norwich is that they have a lot of excess feather, and this does get in the way and interfere with a successful mating. So I've took the Norwich hen and I've trimmed 1/3 of the tail feathers off because I think they've been getting in the way. And I've also trimmed the feathers around the vent, bar the feeler feathers, because I think that as the Twite cock's been hooking under to try and mate, they've been getting in the way, preventing a successful delivery of sperm and therefore a successful mating. So I've trimmed her, I've left him as he is because he's well happy, and I'm hopeful that 3rd time lucky now, those eggs should be full. The final birds that we're going to look at today are the Twites. Now, the Twites have been one of my favourite birds for quite a while. We had a pair last year and we successfully bred 2 youngsters off them. And we saw last episode the Twites were on eggs finally. After laying 2 and not sitting them at all, they've laid 4 and they've sat on them. Now, they've been sat for about 10 days and I've candled them, and sadly they're clear. I'm not quite sure why this was at first. I've checked them and they're definitely clear. They've definitely been sat long enough, and it is a young pair, so I would have higher expectations that they could have been full. Now it's the 2nd time they've gone down, but I then end up catching the 2 birds up, and the suspected cockbird is either very overweight, and I'm not sure why because it was bouncing fit when I paired them up, and I haven't been giving them a particularly high in fat food, or it's a hen. So there's a possibility that we have 2 Twite hens and not a cock and a hen. If that is the case, we do have a Twite cock that is with the Norwich that I could use and put over one of the hens and see if we can get some youngsters that way. But at the moment, I'm going to leave them together. I'm going to change the diet slightly and see if we can knock that weight off of the cockbird, and hopefully for the next round, the eggs will be full. So please, at home, keep your fingers crossed for us and let's hope the 2nd round will be successful. So everyone, that is the end of Breeding British Birds episode 6. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you have, then please make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any more future content from here at OC Avery. Also, if you've enjoyed it, do smash a like on this video and make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook for daily updates and behind the scenes footage of all of the birds here at OC Avery. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.